I now give the floor to His Excellency Enele Sosene Sopogoa, Prime Minister and Minister for Public Utilities of Tuvalu. Honorable Prime Minister, you have the floor.
Mr. President, distinguished members of the General Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Tuvalu and on my own behalf, I congratulate you on your elections as President of the 74th United Nations General Assembly. Tuvalu has full confidence in your leadership. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the President of our 73rd session, Maria Espinosa Garcia, for a very successful session under her leadership. I am honored to inform you that Tuvalu has just recently installed a new democratically elected government. Our Honorable Prime Minister therefore sends his warm greetings to this august gathering and wish to convey his regrets that he is not able to attend this UNGA due to other national commitments. I also want to express Tuvalu's heartfelt condolences to the government and people of the Bahamas for the extensive destruction and the loss of lives caused by Hurricane Dorian. The scale of the damage in the Bahamas and in natural disasters around the world is clear evidence that we are losing the race to save our planet and future generations. I also want to express the appreciation of the people and government of Tuvalu to the UN Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, for visiting Tuvalu in May this year to see firsthand our extreme vulnerability to climate change and to build momentum towards the successful climate actions to climate change and to build momentum towards his successful Climate Action Summit, which we all witnessed and participated in early this week. Tuvalu wishes to acknowledge his incredible energy and commitment to save our planet and humanity from the adverse impacts of climate change. Mr. President, I congratulate you for the priority you have given to multilateralism, poverty eradication, quality education, climate action, and inclusion by making them a theme for the 74th UNGA. I am happy that these are the core development issues that my country had set out to address in our recent National Sustainable Development Strategy, the Kakenga 3. We have made positive progress in quality education, poverty eradication, and health. We do not discriminate on gender, and our women have equal access to employment, pay rates, and decision-making process as men, including political participation. At the regional level, the objectives of your theme are also matched by the development vision of leaders of our Blue Pacific continent when they met in Tuvalu last month. The outcome of our Leaders Summit, the Pacific Forum Leaders Communique, and the Kainaki 2 Declaration for Asian Climate Actions now are strategically geared towards the achievement of this same objective. But the adverse impacts of climate change continue to impede our development. Cyclone Pam in 2014 wiped out 60% of our GDP. In 2011, we had the worst drought on record. More frequent and severe cyclone mean repeated rebuilding after every year or so. This is an expensive exercise well beyond the resources and capacities of our small island economies. Mr. President, my country is in the front line of climate change. At no more than 3 meters above sea level, rising sea level presents a direct existential threat to my country. Rising sea level had contaminated our groundwater resources. Agriculture is now difficult in most places, and rising temperature is damaging our reefs and fisheries. Our food and water security are severely compromised. A life of fear and uncertainty is becoming our way of life. I know none of us here would like our children and their grandchildren to live their lives in constant fear and uncertainty. A landmark UN report released on Wednesday this week predicts that sea level rise could reach 30 to 60 centimeters by the year 2100, even if countries step up emission cuts and global warming is limited to well below 2 degrees. This would affect over 1 billion people. According to the report, our small island countries will be submerged and uninhabitable. Mr. President, we applaud the determination of our youth to address climate change. And as future leaders and custodians of our planet and its resources, we must listen to them and support their efforts. They deserve a future just like it was given to us by past generations. I wish to acknowledge the UN Secretary General's commitment to the atoll nations in providing assistance that brought in young people from Tuvalu to share their stories about living in the most vulnerable parts of the world and to advocate for their sustainable future. Early this week, youth from my country participated in the programs for the Youth Climate Summit, including hosting a side event. The strong message they brought to the United Nations is that they want to preserve their cultural identity and traditional knowledge, and that moving from their homeland is not an option. Indeed, we are proud of our island nations because it is our own. It is where we have lived for generations and according to our culture. On Wednesday this week, a report by the UN Special Rapporteur in the field of cultural rights of a visit to Tuvalu confirmed the very real risk of climate change on our cultural rights. The report said that the very cultural survival of entire peoples may be at stake as never before, undermining all human rights, including cultural rights. Mr. President, the science is very clear, and the evidence is also very clear. The 1.5 degrees target is no longer enough to save us. A target lower than 1.5 degrees is required to save the small island developing states. The target of 2 degrees is now irrelevant and a senseless target that would not save our planet and our future generations. The voices of the most affected and who have done the least to cause the harm, such as the voices of Tuvaluans, must be heard loud and clear, not just because of our survival is at stake, but because if the world fails us, it will also fail itself. As Secretary General Antonio Guterres said during his visit to my country in May this year, the world must save Tuvalu to avoid the world drowning with Tuvalu. We therefore urge the United Nations process, including the UNFCCC, to recognize the 3 recent approved IPCC special reports on 1.5 degrees, lands, and oceans. Mr. President, for underdeveloped and small island developing countries, mitigation and adaptation is beyond our capacities and resources. Tuvalu has committed to an ambitious NDC target of 100% renewable energy in our electricity generation sector by 2025. This is a very ambitious target for a country that has negligible contribution to climate change, a target that will address the expensive price of fuel in our region and contributes to our efforts to achieving sustainable development. In this respect, I wish to extend our deep appreciation to India and France for the initiative on solar energy development under the International Solar Alliance, and to the EU, New Zealand, Taiwan, Italy, UAE, Japan, and World Bank for their support as well. We have also set up a climate change survival fund that is regulated by an act of Parliament. The fund allows us to provide immediate relief and assistance to people when natural disasters strike. The government is the main contributor to the fund, and we welcome contribution from the international community. Mr. President, if we are to win the race against climate change, then developed nations must lift the deprived with financial and technical resources. There are enough resources on this planet to fulfill everyone's need. There are technologies available to support just transition and decent jobs. In many countries, renewable energy is now cheaper than coal and fossil fuel. So we have what we need to save our planet. All that we lack is political commitment, especially from those who are well-resourced and better equipped to help. I want to take this opportunity to express my country's sincere appreciation to countries who have shown commitment to the 2050 zero-emission target and increased their contributions to the Green Climate Fund. Mr. President, I wish to acknowledge the efforts of notable members of the Security Council in bringing climate change to the core of its peace and security agenda. This is a genuine commitment to addressing the single greatest threat to humanity. It is our humble hope that the whole Security Council membership can agree to have climate change as a permanent item on its agenda. Our oceans and our fisheries are our greatest hope for sustainable development, providing over 50% of our annual national development budget. The security of our exclusive economic zone is therefore an important national priority. I therefore wish to reaffirm the commitment of our Pacific leaders to developing international law with the aim of ensuring that once a foreign member's maritime zones are delineated in accordance with the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, that the members' maritime zones could not be challenged or reduced as a result of sea level rise and climate change. Our sovereignty could not be compromised by climate change. Mr. President, genuine and durable partnership is fundamental to achievement of Agenda 2030 and the SDGs. However, the exclusion of a genuine and durable partner as Taiwan from the UN systems denied its 23 million people their fundamental right to participate, benefit, and contribute to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Already, Taiwan is a responsible and able partner to Tuvalu and many countries around the world, and could do more if it is invited to do so. Tuvalu strongly supports the ROC's readmission into the UN as a founding member of the UN and its active participation in the UN specialized agencies. In a similar manner, the long unilateral economic embargo on Cuba directly constrains the development aspiration of the people of Cuba. It neglected the human rights and the spirit of cooperation espoused in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The recent increase of sanctions on remittances directly limits private assistances to grassroots levels of their communities. Likewise, our United Nations must engage with the people of Papua, West Papua, to find lasting solutions to their struggles. I want to recognize and welcome the invitation by Indonesia for a mission to West Papua by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. We must allow the participation of all people in our efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals with their human rights protected. If we are to achieve Agenda 2030 and to leave no one behind. Mr. President, as you have heard, I have spoken about climate change more than anything else on the theme of our 74th session. It does not mean that the other objectives of the theme of the session are not important. Multilateralism, poverty eradication, quality education, health, and inclusion are very important issues. But for a small, low-lying island atoll country as Tuvalu, climate change is also important to our development. To us, climate change is not just an environmental issue. It is an economic issue. It is a social issue. It is a cultural issue. It is a survival issue. And it is also a human rights issue. It affects all factors and sectors of our development, so much so that our sustainable future and survival brings on climate change more than anything else. In conclusion, I wish to reiterate that Tuvalu strongly believes that our collective efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Agenda 2030, secure global peace, security, and prosperity will be severely compromised unless we are committed to immediate climate change action as demanded by our youth and young people and the scientific reports of the IPCC, the authoritative scientific body of the UNFCCC. I thank you, Mr. President. I thank you, Mr. President. Tuvalu Motiatua.
I thank the Deputy Foreign Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, His Excellency Manut Alpati Taupo, for his statement on behalf of Tuvalu.